There is an island so vast that if you placed it over Europe, it would stretch from Portugal to the Black Sea. Yet fewer people live on it than in a single small town. Most of it is buried under ice nearly 2 miles thick. In some places, that ice is so heavy it has pushed the land beneath it below sea level. There are no roads connecting its towns, no highways, no railways. To move between settlements, people still rely on boats, planes, helicopters, and in winter, sled dogs. This is a place where the ground is not always ground, where the sea is not always sea, where the sun can refuse to rise for months, and then refuse to set. From the outside, it is often reduced to a single word: ice. But that word hides everything that actually matters here. Because Greenland is not empty, it is not silent, and it is not what the maps suggest. This is the frozen edge of the world, and once you step into it, almost nothing behaves the way you expect. Most countries can be understood through their cities. Greenland cannot, because here, the land itself sets every rule. More than 80% of the island is covered by a single ice sheet, the second largest on Earth, after Antarctica. In some places, it rises over 3,000 meters above sea level. In others, it presses down so hard that the bedrock beneath has sunk below the level of the ocean. That ice is not decoration. It is the structure of the country. It decides where people can live, where boats can sail, where planes can land, where dogs can run. The entire population of Greenland, around 56,000 people, lives on a thin ribbon of coastline, clinging to the edges of the island where the ice releases its grip just enough to allow life. No town is connected to another by road, not one. To go from one settlement to the next, you fly, you sail, or in winter, you cross the ice. And that isolation is not a flaw. It is the condition of existence here. It shapes how people build, how they hunt, how they speak, how they wait, how they survive. To understand Greenland, you cannot start with politics. You cannot start with maps. You have to start with the ice itself. Because the ice is not just frozen water. It is memory. It is pressure. It is time. And it is still moving. Chapter 1. The ice that remembers from the air. The Greenland ice sheet does not look like a landscape. It looks like a continent of white, with no horizon, no edge, no scale. It covers roughly 1.7 million square kilometers, an area larger than Alaska. In its center, the ice reaches a depth of more than 3 kilometers. That is not snow. That is compressed history, because the ice at the bottom of that sheet did not fall last winter. It fell over 100,000 years ago. Layer by layer, snowfall after snowfall, the weight of each new winter pressed the older ones downward, compacting them into solid ice. And as it compressed, it trapped something. Air, tiny bubbles sealed inside the ice, holding the exact composition of the atmosphere from the moment they were buried, which means the deepest layers of the Greenland ice sheet still contain breathable samples of the air our ancestors knew. Air from before agriculture, before written language, before recorded history. Scientists drill deep cores from this ice and read it the way others read manuscripts. Each layer is a year. Each bubble is a record. Volcanic eruptions appear as ash. Industrial pollution appears as lead. Climate shifts appear as chemistry. The ice does not simply exist. It remembers. But this archive is not stable, because the same ice that holds the past is also moving. Slowly, constantly, the entire sheet flows outward from its high interior toward the coast, pulled by gravity and its own immense weight. In the center, that movement is almost invisible, centimeters per year. But near the edges, where the ice meets the sea, it accelerates. In some places, it moves more than 40 meters in a single day. This is where the ice becomes something else, a glacier. And nowhere is that transformation more dramatic than at Ilulissat. Chapter 2. The glacier that feeds the ocean on the western coast of Greenland, just above the Arctic Circle, lies a town of around 4,000 people called Ilulissat. The name means icebergs. It is not a poetic name. It is a description. Because just outside the town, the Sermek-Kujalik Glacier, also known as the Jakobshavn Glacier, flows directly into the sea. It is one of the fastest moving glaciers on Earth, advancing several tens of meters a day, and it produces roughly 10% of all the icebergs that break off from Greenland each year. That is not a small number. It is enough ice to reshape the surface of the North Atlantic. The icebergs released here are not the kind seen in postcards. Some rise more than 100 meters above the water, and what is visible above the surface is only about 10% of their total mass. The rest, the vast, hidden 90%, extends downward into the sea, sometimes nearly a kilometer deep. When they break free from the glacier, the sound carries for kilometers. A low, rolling collapse, sometimes a sharp crack, sometimes a deep groan that seems to come from inside the earth itself. Locals call it the voice of the ice, and it is constant. Day and night, summer and winter, the glacier keeps moving, keeps breaking, keeps feeding the ocean. But the icebergs do not always leave easily. Just outside the mouth of the Ilulissat ice fjord lies a shallow underwater ridge, a kind of natural barrier. Many of the largest icebergs become stuck there, packed together for weeks or months, forming an immense floating wall of ice that stretches across the horizon. Then, eventually, the pressure builds, and the ice breaks free. Massive blocks drift out into Disco Bay, then into the Labrador Sea, and from there into the open Atlantic. It is believed that the iceberg that struck the Titanic in 1912 originated from this exact glacier, which means that what happens here does not stay here. The ice released from Ilulissat travels. It melts. It joins the global ocean, and it changes the chemistry, temperature, and circulation of waters thousands of kilometers away. This is one of the few places on Earth where you can stand in a small town and watch the planet's climate system in motion. Not as theory, not as data, but as something physical, something audible, something present. And yet, even here, at the edge of one of the most powerful natural forces on the planet, people live. Chapter 3. Life on a coastline without roads. Greenland has no road network connecting its towns. That single fact reshapes everything about daily life. There are around 70 inhabited settlements scattered along thousands of kilometers of coastline. Some are towns of several thousand people. Others are villages of fewer than 50. Between them, there is only sea, ice, and air. To travel from one place to another, residents depend on small planes, helicopters, coastal ferries, fishing boats, and in many northern communities, dog sleds. This is not nostalgia. It is logistics. In the far north, where the sea freezes for much of the year and motorized vehicles struggle in extreme cold, sled dogs remain one of the most reliable forms of transportation. They do not run out of fuel. They do not break down. They navigate ice that no machine can cross safely. Greenlandic sled dogs are a distinct breed, bred for centuries to survive in the Arctic. They are not pets. They are working animals, kept outside year-round, capable of pulling heavy loads across frozen terrain for hours at a time. In towns like Ilulissat, Umanak, and Kanak, you can still see them tied in long rows along the edges of the settlements, waiting for winter. When the sea ice forms, they move, and the world they cross is one few outsiders ever witness. Frozen fjords stretch for tens of kilometers between cliffs. Light reflects off the ice in colors that change with the hour. Pale blue at dawn, white at noon, gold at dusk, deep violet at night. In the middle of winter, in the northernmost communities, the sun does not rise at all for weeks. The days are not dark in the way most people imagine. There is twilight, moonlight on snow, stars that do not move. And when conditions are right, the northern lights, the aurora borealis, stretch across the sky in slow, silent waves of green and red. But this is not a postcard. It is a working environment. Hunting and fishing remain central to many communities, especially in the smaller settlements. Seal, halibut, narwhal, musk ox, and reindeer are not exotic foods here. They are part of how people eat, how they trade, how they pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This is not a theme park version of tradition. It is daily life shaped by the only conditions that exist. And that life is changing, because the same ice that defines this country is no longer behaving the way it used to. Chapter 4. The country that is losing its ground. For most of human history, the Greenland ice sheet was considered permanent. It was the constant, the thing that did not move. That assumption no longer holds. Over the past several decades, the ice sheet has been losing mass at an accelerating rate. Satellite measurements have tracked the change since the early 2000s, and the pattern is consistent. More ice is being lost each year than is being replaced by snowfall. In 2019 alone, Greenland lost an estimated 532 billion tons of ice. That single year of melt contributed more than a millimeter to global sea level rise. It does not sound like much until you consider that Greenland holds enough ice in total to raise global sea levels by around 7 meters if it were ever to melt completely. That scenario is not imminent, but the trend is real and it is visible from the ground. Glaciers that were once stable are now retreating. Hunters in the north report that sea ice forms later in the year and breaks up earlier. Routes that families used for generations are no longer reliable. Dog sled paths that once crossed solid ice now end at open water. In some communities, traditional hunting grounds have become unreachable. In others, the timing of the entire year has shifted. This is not an abstract scientific story. It is a lived reality. And it raises a question that almost no other country has had to face so directly. What happens when the foundation of your entire way of life begins to disappear beneath you? Greenland's response has not been despair. It has been adaptation. New industries are emerging. Fishing remains central, but tourism, mining, and even rare earth extraction are now part of a conversation about the country's future. As the ice retreats, parts of the island that were inaccessible for thousands of years are becoming exposed for the first time. That has consequences, some of them economic, some of them political, because Greenland is not just a landscape. It is a country with a name, a flag, a parliament, and a population that has been pushing for greater independence for decades. Chapter 5. A nation inside another Greenland is officially part of the Kingdom of Denmark, but the relationship is more complex than it sounds. The island has its own government, its own parliament, its own prime minister, and its own official language, Ilulissat, also known as Greenlandic. Since 2009, it has had the formal right to declare full independence from Denmark whenever its population chooses to do so. That decision has not yet been made. The reason is not sentiment. It is economics. Roughly half of Greenland's public budget still comes from an annual block grant from Denmark. Without that support, the country would face serious challenges funding its healthcare, education, and infrastructure systems, particularly given the cost of operating in such an extreme environment. But the conversation about independence has not gone away. It has intensified. In recent years, as global interest in the Arctic has grown, driven by climate change, shipping routes, and natural resources, Greenland has found itself at the center of geopolitical attention it never asked for. Foreign powers have expressed interest in its strategic location. Mining companies have begun exploring deposits of rare earth elements, uranium, and other materials beneath the retreating ice. And the people of Greenland have made clear, again and again, that decisions about their land must be made by those who live on it. Because for all its scale and silence, Greenland is not a blank space on the map. It is home to a population that has lived here for over 4,000 years. Descendants of Inuit peoples who crossed from the Canadian Arctic in waves, adapting to one of the most demanding environments on Earth long before any European ship reached these shores. Their knowledge of the ice, the sea, the animals, and the seasons is not folklore. It is technical expertise built across generations, and it is part of why life here is possible at all. Chapter 6. The Places Time Forgot. Beyond the glaciers and the modern towns, Greenland holds something else. Ruins. In the south, near the modern village of Qasiarsuk, lie the remains of stone buildings that do not belong to the Inuit tradition. They are Norse. Around the year 985, the Viking explorer Eric the Red established the first European settlement in Greenland after being exiled from Iceland. Over the following centuries, Norse colonies grew along the southwestern coast, building churches, farms, and trading posts. At their peak, they may have housed several thousand people. Then, sometime in the 15th century, they vanished. The exact cause is still debated. A cooling climate, soil exhaustion, conflict, isolation from European trade routes. Most likely a combination of all of them. What remains today are stone foundations, low walls, and the outlines of buildings that once held an entire chapter of European history at the edge of the known world. Standing among them in the long shadows of an Arctic afternoon, the silence feels different. Not empty, just patient, as if the land is simply waiting to see who will try next. Further north, the landscape holds other traces: old hunting camps, stone cairns used as navigation markers, burial sites that have remained undisturbed for centuries because the ground itself is too frozen to dig. In Greenland, history is not stored in archives, it is preserved by cold. Bodies, tools, clothing, even food remains have been recovered from sites where the permafrost slowed decay almost completely. In 1972, in the village of Ilulissat, hunters discovered the mummified remains of 8 Inuit individuals, 6 women and 2 children, preserved by the dry, freezing air for more than 500 years. Their clothing was intact. Their facial features were still visible. Their tattoos were still readable on their skin. They are now among the best preserved human remains ever found in the Arctic. And they are a reminder that this island, often described as empty, has always been inhabited and always remembered. Chapter 7. The Light That Does Not Behave. There is one more thing about Greenland that defies expectation: the light. Above the Arctic Circle, the relationship between the sun and the horizon changes completely. In summer, the sun does not set for weeks at a time. In winter, it does not rise. In Qaanaaq, one of the northernmost towns in the world, the polar night lasts about 4 months. From late October to mid-February, the sun stays below the horizon. There is no sunrise, no sunset, only a long, slow rotation of twilight, darkness, moonlight, and stars. Then, in spring, the opposite happens. The sun returns and refuses to leave. For months, it circles the sky without dipping below the horizon. Midnight looks like late afternoon. Children play outside at hours that anywhere else would be reserved for sleep. This is not a metaphor. It is the actual rhythm of life here, and it changes how time itself is experienced. People do not always sleep on a fixed schedule. They sleep when their bodies tell them to, often using thick curtains in summer and artificial light in winter to maintain some sense of routine. The body adapts, the mind adapts, but the environment never stops reminding you that you are somewhere the rules of ordinary life do not fully apply. And when conditions are right, the sky does something else entirely. The aurora borealis. In the deep cold of an Arctic night, the upper atmosphere becomes a stage for one of the most extraordinary natural displays on Earth. Charged particles from the sun collide with gases in the ionosphere, releasing energy as light. The result is curtains of green, red, and violet that move slowly across the sky, sometimes for hours. In Greenland, the aurora is not rare. In the right season, in the right places, it is almost routine. But it never feels routine, because there is something about standing on a frozen coast, in absolute silence, watching light move across the sky above an island that holds more ice than almost anywhere else on Earth, that resists explanation. It is not just beautiful, it is humbling. It is the kind of moment that reminds you, without saying anything, that the planet is much larger and much stranger than the version of it most of us live inside. Greenland is often described in single words: ice, cold, empty, remote. But none of those words survive contact with the place itself, because Greenland is not empty. It is inhabited by people who have built one of the most resilient cultures on Earth, in one of the most demanding environments anywhere. It is not silent. It is full of the sound of moving ice, of wind across open fjords, of dogs in the snow, of voices in a language that has existed here for thousands of years. It is not simple. It is a country negotiating its own future, balancing tradition and modernity, independence and partnership, preservation and change, all under the weight of an ice sheet that is itself in motion. And it is not frozen in time. It is changing faster than almost anywhere else on the planet, and the people who live here are adapting in real time to a world that is being rewritten beneath their feet. What Greenland reveals more than anything is how narrow our usual picture of the world really is. We imagine countries as cities, roads, borders, populations. Greenland refuses all of that. It is a country defined by ice, by distance, by light, by silence, and by the quiet endurance of people who have learned to live where most others could not. The headlines reduce it to a strategic asset, a resource frontier, a climate warning. But up close, it is something else. It is a place where the past is preserved in ice, where the present is lived on the edge of immense forces, and where the future is being decided by people whose voices the rest of the world is only beginning to hear. This is Greenland, not the frozen edge of the world, the frozen edge of everything we thought we understood about it.